This post is an English translation of a Dhamma talk on Satipatthana meditation, 4 foundations of mindfulness, taught by Venerable Rajagiriye Ariyagnana Thero, a Theravada bhikkhu from Sri Lanka regarded by Theravadins as a living arahant. Bhante systematically walks through the practice as taught by the Buddha in Satipatthana Sutta. This Dhamma talk explains why we have not realized Nibbana, despite countless lifetimes, have not properly cultivated the Noble Eightfold Path and 4 foundations of mindfulness. The Buddha taught that anyone who perfects this practice will realize the 4 noble truths within 7 years maximum, possibly as quickly as 7 days. 4 foundations of mindfulness, body, mind, feelings, and dhammas, are not meant to be practiced in isolation either. The key is starting with Kayanupassana, contemplation of body, through 5 approaches, the 38 2 parts of the body, 6 sense bases, 4 great elements, postures, and mindfulness of death. Only after seeing form's impermanence, clearly should one move to Sitnupassana, contemplation of just the mind, and learn to stop at the bare moment of contact, phassa, without wetting it with craving, and from there, discerning the impermanence through Vedanupassana, contemplation of feelings, and Dhammanupassana, contemplation of dhammas. As the seer Rohitasa once sought the end of the world externally, but was told by the Buddha that the entire world exists within our own nama rupa, name and form. So Dhamma too is hidden within ourselves, arising in name and form, and can be fully realized only through diligent, continuous practice. This is the direct path the Buddha taught, laid out systematically in the Satipatthana Sutta, recommended for practitioners wanting a practical roadmap for deepening Satipatthana step by step. Dhamma talk. Before anything else, we must understand what the fruit of the Satipatthana Dhamma truly is. When we walk in the Noble Eightfold Path, cultivating the first 7 factors, 8th factor, right concentration, samasamadhi, arises as their culmination. Thus, the Noble Eightfold Path itself is the fruit of right concentration. Right concentration means a mind absorbed in jhana, a collected and unified mind that is free from the 5 hindrances: sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and doubt. It is never possible for one whose mind is still fettered by these hindrances to truly behold the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Therefore, if someone says, "The Noble Eightfold Path does not apply to me. I only practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness," that statement is not in harmony with the Dhamma. Hence, it is essential first to rely upon spiritual friendship, kalyanamitta, listening to the true Dhamma, sadhamma savana, and wise reflection, yoniso manasikara, in order to enter the Noble Eightfold Path. Having entered it and developed the first 7 factors, one then proceeds through right concentration, the 8th factor, toward the realization through the Satipatthana Dhamma. The Blessed One declared that the decisive driving force on this path to Nibbana, the very power that determines its fruition, is none other than these 4 foundations of mindfulness. The Blessed One further taught that when a person perfected the Noble Eightfold Path and rightly cultivates the 4 foundations of mindfulness, that person should be capable of realizing the 4 noble truths within 7 days. If not within 7 days, then within 7 weeks. If not within 7 weeks, then within 7 months. And if still not within 7 months, the Blessed One said that person should realize the 4 noble truths within 7 years at the very most. This means that anyone who has rightly perfected the Noble Eightfold Path and, through right concentration, cultivated the 4 foundations, of mindfulness will surely realize the Four Noble Truths within at most 7 years, as declared by the Blessed One himself. So now consider this. Through countless eons and the arising of innumerable fully enlightened Buddhas, and even now having encountered the dispensation of this supreme Gautama Buddha, why have we still not realized the Four Noble Truths? It is because, even after all this time, we have not yet perfected the Noble Eightfold Path, nor cultivated the four foundations of mindfulness to completion. For if we had, it could not have been otherwise. The Blessed One's word does not deceive. The Blessed One declared that if one were to perfect the Noble Eightfold Path and rightly cultivate the four foundations of mindfulness continuously for 7 years, one would certainly attain the supreme fruit of arahantship. Then why is it that we have not yet, in this very life, reached that exalted state? It is because we have not yet, without interruption, cultivated this Dhamma path for even 7 full years in succession. Therefore, one must become diligent to recognize the Noble Eightfold Path rightly, to cultivate it in its mundane aspect first, and then to direct it toward the supramundane, so that, through the correct development of the four foundations of mindfulness, one may realize the Four Noble Truths within a maximum of 7 years, as the Blessed One himself proclaimed. In that context, the Buddha taught that the four foundations of mindfulness are the contemplation of body, kayanupassana, contemplation of mind, cittanupassana, contemplation of feelings, vedanupassana, and contemplation of Dhamma, dhammanupassana. Thus, in the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness, the Blessed One first instructs us in contemplation of the body, kayanupassana. Only after teaching contemplation of the body does the Blessed One proceed to teach contemplation of mind, contemplation of feelings, and contemplation of Dhammas. Therefore, first and foremost, we must train ourselves to direct the mind toward kayanupassana, as the Blessed One himself instructed. Before we can clearly see the impermanent nature of the mind, Buddha teaches us first to behold the impermanence of form, rupa. Once, a venerable monk asked me a question, Bhante. What did you see first? The truth that the Ruanweli-seya, the great stupa, is impermanent, or that the mind which sees it is impermanent? I replied that what I first saw was that the great stupa itself is impermanent. I saw that in the future, owing to changes in weather and time, this great stupa would crumble and dissolve into the earth. This radiant, milk-white, living monument, shining like the living presence of the blessed Buddha himself, the great stupa, I saw that one day it too would merge back into the four great elements. Through contemplating this way on the impermanence of form, rupa, there arose within me a deep insight, so that whenever I recollected the great stupa, I would simultaneously perceive the impermanence of the very mind that recollected it. Thus, the Blessed One first instructs us, in relation to the four foundations of mindfulness, to see the impermanent nature of form, rupa. It is not possible to follow the Dhamma path according to our own inclinations or desires. Therefore, we must strive diligently and faithfully along the very path that the Blessed One has laid down. Because one have to realize is this Dhamma is hidden within oneself. It is concealed within one's very being. When the Blessed One said that the Dhamma is hidden within oneself, what does that mean? It means that the Blessed One has brought this entire world, entire cosmos, into this very form and revealed it to us. At one time, a deity named Rohitasa approached the Blessed One and said, "Blessed One, sir, in a previous life I was a seer endowed with great supernormal powers. Through that power, I possessed a remarkable ability. My single stride spanned 4 yojanas. Now, in this present life, the human stride is but 2 feet, but then mine reached across 4 yojanas in a single step. I thought to myself, with such a gift, I shall walk and find the end of the world. So I set forth, taking those vast strides, seeking to discover where the world ends and where it begins. Rohitasa lived for 100 years, and throughout that time he continued his great journey, striding 4 yojanas with every step. Yet he could not find the end of the world, nor its beginning. Then he said to the Blessed One, Lord, though I sought with all my might, I could not reach the end of the world, nor discover its beginning. At that moment, the Buddha said, Rohitasa, you have searched for the world outside, but truly, it is within yourself that the world is found. Why did the Blessed One declare that the world is within oneself? Because the Buddha revealed that the world arises within the two, nama, name, and rupa, form. Imagine this. If you were to take a piece from the sun and place it here, a piece from the moon and place it here, a piece from a cloud and place it here, a piece from the great earth and place it here, and even a piece of flesh from this very body and place it here. What are all these made of? They are all formed from the 4 great elements. Though all are but the 4 great elements combined, we have assigned conventional names to them. This is the sun, this is the moon, these is the cloud, this is the earth, this is flesh. These are mere designations, conventions of speech. Yet in truth, they all arise from and dissolve back into the 4 great elements. Thus, when you truly comprehend that this very form, rupa, is but the 4 great elements, then in that very moment you have understood the essence of all the forms, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the trees, the leaves, the flesh. All of them are comprehended within that understanding of the 4 elements. Therefore, the Blessed One said not to seek the world outside, and behold it within yourself. For it is within oneself that this Dhamma lies hidden. And what brings forth this hidden Dhamma from within? It is the noble 8-fold path. By cultivating that path and developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, one brings to light the truth of the world's impermanent anicca, suffering dukkha, and non-self, anatta nature, within one's own being. Thus, lay disciples should always be diligent. When practicing meditation, they must develop, in accordance with the Satipatthana Sutta, the 4 foundations of mindfulness as the Blessed One has taught. For in society, there are countless teachings of various kinds. Understand this well. It is fine to learn from anyone, but when questions arise, one must always return to the Satipatthana Sutta taught by the Supreme Buddha. Study it carefully and resolve one's doubts through it. Why? Because in that discourse, the Blessed One explains in the simplest and clearest of ways how to cultivate the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the direct path to realization. Therefore, the Blessed One continually teaches that among the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the very first to be contemplated is mindfulness of the body, Kayanupassana. By Kayanupassana, the Blessed One instructs us in 5 ways to see the impermanent nature of this body, rupa. First, he teaches us to contemplate the impermanence of this body as composed of 32 repulsive parts. Second, he teaches us to contemplate it in terms of the 6 sense bases, ayatanas: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and day, mind, seeing their impermanent nature through the development of ayatana bhavana, contemplation on the sense spheres. Third, he teaches us to contemplate this form as composed of the 4 great elements: earth, water, fire, and air, seeing their impermanent nature. Fourth, he teaches us to regard this body as engaged in various postures, observing their constant change and instability. Fifth, he teaches us to contemplate the impermanence of this body through the recollection of death, marananasati. Now consider this: when you contemplate this body in terms of the sense bases, seeing its impermanent nature, close your eyes. If you can, sit down quietly. If you can, sit on a chair. Seated, reflect for a moment with wisdom on the danger of samsara, the endless round of birth and death. Reflect for a moment on the virtues of the Buddha, Buddhanasati. Then begin to contemplate this body in terms of the sense bases, seeing its impermanent nature. As you contemplate thus, see clearly the impermanence of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. With your mind's eye, behold how the eye that once existed in your mother's womb, the eye that exists now, and the eye that will one day grow old and perish, are all transient, impermanent. In your mind, imagine removing your eyes and placing them upon the ground. Imagine removing the ears and setting them on the ground, the nose, tongue, body, and mind as well. Now there are 6 heaps lying before you: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. Is there now a solid form, a perception of a compact body? Gana-rupa-sana. There is not. Why? Because you have mentally taken apart this sense of compactness, laying down the 6 bases upon the ground. Now, through your mind-made body, look at these 6 parts lying there. Behold the eye. It decays. It rots. It oozes fluids. It becomes foul and attracts flies. See likewise the ear, the nose, the tongue, and the body, decaying, putrid, emitting stench, attracting flies. Seeing thus, realize deeply: this very body with which I live, this eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, all belong to decay, to foulness, to stench, to the flies. When this body decays and emits stench, dogs come to devour it. See this with insight. Behold, within the stomachs of those dogs, your own form is seen. See the dog approaching and devouring your eyes, and perceive your eyes within the filth of that dog's belly. You must become skilled at seeing your eyes through that dog's feces. Therefore see continuously and wisely this body that I call mine. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind will at its end become nothing but heaps of filth, reeking and crawling with flies, food for animals. Having seen this, finally recognize this eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind all disintegrate into the great earth itself, merging back into the 4 great elements. After that, one contemplates this body in terms of the 4 great elements: earth, Pithavi; water, Apo; fire, Tejo; and air, Vayo. At this stage, the Blessed One teaches to break the body into 4 parts according to these elements. Earlier, you have broken this body apart into 6 portions. Now, following the Buddha's instruction, see it as 4-fold, composed of these 4 great elements. Now, contemplate the earth element, Pathavi Dhatu, the solid nature within the body, the flesh, skin, bones, sinews, and all the hardness. Gather them together into one heap, and in your mind place that heap upon the ground. Then contemplate the water element, Apodhatu, the nature of cohesion and fluidity, the blood, phlegm, saliva, sweat, and other fluids. Gather them too into another heap and lay them down in your mind. Through these two heaps, you can discern the air element, Vayodhatu, and the fire element, Tehodhatu, as well, though they cannot be separated in the same way. Therefore, continuously contemplate this body as if the four elements have been laid down upon the ground. With your mind-made body, observe the impermanent nature of these four. See how the earth element continually decays, rots, emits stench, attracting flies, and becomes food for worms and animals, finally merging back into the great earth. See how the water element too becomes foul, putrid, and dissipates, finally returning to the soil as mere moisture. Understand, with wisdom, how the fire element and the air element merge into their external counterparts, the outer heat and the outer wind. Having seen this clearly, as the Blessed One teaches, diminish craving toward these four great elements, recognizing their true nature of impermanence, decay, and dissolution. Next, the Blessed One teaches us to continually contemplate this body as a posture that is being maintained. Why so? Because what is this being called a human, a living creature? It is simply a body that is constantly maintaining one posture or another. If in your life you have ever become attached to someone, it was because of a posture, perhaps a smile, a way of walking, a tone of voice, or some other gesture. We become bound to others because of these postures. But are these postures permanent or impermanent? They are impermanent. What does a being do continually? Merely maintains postures, and it is because of craving, due to grasping at another's posture as mine, or beautiful, that we become bound by craving and thus fall into suffering. Therefore, when you look at society or at another person, see clearly, a human being is nothing but a body engaged in impermanent postures. See this truth again and again. Long ago, our great Arahant elders, Sariputta Mahathara and Mahamoggallana Mahathara, then known as Upatissa, and Kolita, went together in their lay life to watch a grand festival called Giraga Samayaya. As they watched the performance, an actor came upon the stage, performed graceful movements, struck a pose, and exited. Then an actress entered, performed her gestures and postures beautifully, and departed as well. Watching this, they reflected, what are these actors and actresses doing? They are displaying impermanent postures, forms that arise and pass away. Because of these changing postures, craving arises in others, lust and unwholesome states are stirred, and thus both parties, those who display and those who behold, accumulate unwholesome karma. Seeing this, Upatissa and Kolita thought, there is nothing here worth holding on to. Everyone here, actors and audience alike, are simply showing or perceiving impermanent postures, fabricating volitional formations, and heading toward becoming bhava. Watching this, we too are forming fabrications that lead to rebirth. Reflecting deeply in this way and seeing the impermanence of these postures, their disenchantment, nibbida, grew strong. It was through that disillusionment that they later sought out and met the Blessed One. Therefore, when you look at the world, understand most of the unwholesome karma you commit arises through looking at the postures of others. Do you see it? Yet those postures of others do not truly belong to them. They are not theirs. In the same way, the posture you maintain does not truly belong to you either. Thus, because of postures that belong to no one, we keep gathering formations, generating becoming bhava, and lengthening our journey through samsara. Therefore, as the Blessed One teaches, whenever you see an external form or posture, contemplate it as impermanent. And even as you yourself engage in postures, walking, standing, sitting, lying down, see at every moment, this posture too is impermanent. That is the contemplation the Blessed One has taught. Therefore, as the next contemplation, the Blessed One teaches to see life through mindfulness of death, marananasati, as part of contemplation on the body, kayanupassana. To see life in the light of mindfulness of death means this. The Blessed One instructs that while living today, see clearly that tomorrow you may die. Live with that understanding. Sometimes people come and say, Bhante, I am 30 years old now. In 2 years I plan to get married, have children, and by the time I am 60, I will ordain as a monk. But I tell them, my child, if you think that way, the Dhamma will never truly take root within you. Why? Because you have built a great mountain of expectations, stretching till 60 years ahead. And if, while carrying this mountain of expectations, you were to die tomorrow, could you let go of those expectations? You could not. Therefore, as lay people, you may and should have wholesome expectations and plans. That is necessary. But along with that, always keep in mind, tomorrow morning, I could die. While seeing clearly that death may come tomorrow, you can still plan ahead. But if you plan for 60 years into the future without reflecting on the possibility of dying tomorrow, then if death does come tomorrow, you will not be able to let go of that mountain of hopes, and after death, great suffering will follow. Thus, the Blessed One teaches mindfulness of death not to weaken life, but to strengthen it. For if we see that we may die tomorrow, what will we do today? We will do today what we were going to postpone until tomorrow, and we will do it with strength and clarity. Whether it is for your children, your spouse, your nation, or yourself, you will bring energy into today. And is strengthening today a negative thing or a positive thing? It is a positive thing. But of course, we do not actually die tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, we think again, I may die the day after tomorrow. And by keeping that thought, we again bring strength into the present day. So, is that a negative or a positive result? It is positive. Therefore, cultivating mindfulness of death is something positive, not negative. However, some people misunderstand this noble teaching and take it to extremes. The Dhamma should always be lived according to the middle path, harmonized with daily life. If one drifts toward extremes, the Dhamma itself becomes distorted and open to criticism. Some people, thinking they are practicing mindfulness of death, stop working properly, neglect their business, ignore their spouse and children, or live in an unclean, careless way, saying, "These things do not matter. We are all going to die." But that is an extreme. That is not the Dhamma. One who truly cultivates mindfulness of death lives nobly in the middle way, full of vigor and responsibility. Because by seeing I may die tomorrow, such a person performs today's duties with strength and diligence. Therefore, while cultivating this reflection, always think, tomorrow I may die. Therefore, today I will do what must be done with strength. By cultivating wholesome qualities in this way, you should constantly reflect upon the reality that you will die. See with wisdom how you fall ill and die. After death, see with insight how your body is embalmed and placed in a funeral parlor. See it laid in a coffin, resting in the middle of your home's hall. See your relatives and friends come to pay their final respects to that body, bowing and offering homage. Finally, see how they lift the coffin and carry it to the cremation grounds. See with wisdom the moment when the body is placed upon the pyre, or, if not, within a crematorium, and the fire begins to consume it. Ultimately, see how the body turns to ashes and merges with the great earth. Now, if I were to ask you, did you once have a grandmother or grandfather? You would say, yes, I did. If I then asked, did that grandmother or grandfather have eyes to see? You would again say, yes, they did. But if I now ask, where are those eyes of your grandmother and grandfather at this very moment? What would you say? Their eyes have turned into the dust of the great earth. In just the same way, they too once had a body like this. And where is that body now? It too has become part of the earth. Therefore, always see clearly that these eyes, this nose, this tongue, this body, all these have the same destiny. They will return to the earth. Close your eyes and recollect your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather, all the relatives and friends who have passed away. Bring to mind the soil of your family's burial ground. What is that soil? It is the true nature of the forms of your departed relatives. So always train yourself to see this eye and the soil of the earth in comparison, to see them as one and the same. This ear, this nose, this tongue, this body, this mind, learn to see them all as of the same nature as the dust of the earth. For ultimately, this very form belongs to the earth. Now reflect as a monk. I am preaching to you at this very moment. But think soon, even this monk will pass away. And what will the devotees do when the monk dies? They will prepare a pyre of wood, place this body upon it, and set it alight. As the flames rise, this monk's eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind burn and are consumed by fire. Yet, when this body burns, do you call that fire the Venerable One? No, you do not. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind of the monk are what are burning. But you do not call the fire the monk. You call it the fire element. Tejo Dhatu. The body of the monk catches fire because the oils within the flesh rise and ignite. But do you call that oil the Venerable One? No, you call it the water element, Apo Dhatu. As the fire blazes, smoke rises upward. Do you call that smoke the Venerable One? No, you call it the air element, Vayu Dhatu. Finally, when all the fire is spent, only ashes and bones remain. Do you call those ashes and bones the Venerable One? No, you call them the earth element, Pathavi Dhatu. Now, what has happened here? The venerable monk's eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, in a single moment, have turned into fire, into smoke, into oil, and into ashes. What is it that we have witnessed? The eyes of the monk turning to fire in an instant. This is the impermanence of form. The monk's ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind becoming ashes, smoke, and fragments of bone in a single moment. This, too, is the impermanence of form. Do you see it clearly now? Therefore, constantly close your eyes and see, truly see, this I as a heap of earth. That is reality. Continually close your eyes and see this body as a mass of fire, a wisp of smoke, a pile of dust spread across the great earth. That is the true nature of form. Thus, in relation to Kayanupasana, contemplation of the body within the four foundations of mindfulness, when cultivating this practice, always behold with insight the impermanence of form and the fading away of craving toward it. Just as you observe your own body with insight, so too observe all other forms with insight. Vipassana. First, contemplate with insight the forms you are most attached to, those you love and find pleasing. Then, contemplate with insight the forms you dislike. Even when you see an animal, a dog, a cat, a cow, look upon its body with the same insight. This, too, is subject to decay and dissolution. If thoughts arise of a deva, a Brahma being, or a being in the lower realms, a hungry ghost or a hell being, contemplate even their forms as objects of Kayanupasana. In this way, steadily weaken craving for all forms. In the same manner as you carry this beautiful human body, observe it with insight within Kayanupasana, seeing its impermanence. And likewise, visualize even the radiant celestial forms of the heavenly realms. See with wisdom how they, too, are subject to decay. Their lifespan declines, their flowers fade, their divine garments become defiled, bodies lose brilliance, and the gods, weeping, fall from their heavenly worlds. Similarly, the Brahmas dwelling in the fine material and immaterial realms, sustained by the bliss of jhana, when that meditative bliss reaches its end, are again broken away from those planes and fall into the sensual and woeful realms. See this clearly with wisdom. Having seen this, if in the future there are any forms you long for, hope to possess, view every one of them with insight as impermanent. Thus, first you see form through the 6 sense bases, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Then you see it as composed of the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, and air, and discern that form is impermanent. Next, you cultivate mindfulness of posture. This is something you can develop during moments of quiet reflection. For in today's world, beings are tightly bound by attachments, and it is precisely these attachments that bring immense suffering. Especially the younger generation should reflect on this deeply. If one in society is falling into moral transgressions, wrongful actions, or states of helplessness, it is because they have taken impermanent postures, impermanent forms of beauty and allure, as though they were eternal. Therefore, when you see an attractive posture, immediately perceive it as Mara himself, for such forms can drag you through countless eons into the 4 lower realms of intense suffering. Always remember to see through these postures clearly. Then, as part of Marananasati, mindfulness of death, you contemplate how this body ultimately returns to the great earth. When memories of departed relatives arise, recall the soil of your family, burial ground, and see how this very form, too, meets with impermanence. Likewise, as the 4 great elements decay, contemplate the body also as composed of 32 impure parts, hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, and so on, and by seeing these with insight, reduce the craving toward form. It is precisely here that the Blessed One taught, in relation to Kayanupasana, within the 4 foundations of mindfulness, 5 aspects for contemplation. Therefore, always take these 5 as your foundation, and to truly establish them, first cultivate and fulfill the noble 8-fold path. When perfected, right mindfulness, samasati, naturally arises, and that very mindfulness will direct you toward the impermanence of form. After seeing the impermanence of form, the Blessed One next teaches to develop contemplation of mind, Cittanupassana. When we speak of Cittanupassana, what is brought forth is the realization of the impermanence of the mind itself. Now, what do we mean by mind? A mind arises at the meeting point of three things: an internal form, an external form, and consciousness. The internal form is the I. The external form is the visible object that appears to the eye. Where these two meet, consciousness arises, and that contact, phassa, is established. Contact, phassa, means the moment of seeing, hearing, or feeling. Whenever something is seen, heard, or felt, that is phassa. Now, what do we usually do at the very moment contact occurs? We wet that experience with craving, tanya. Soaking the experience in craving, we generate attachment, grasping, and mental fabrications, sankhara, that propel us toward renewed becoming, bhava. Therefore, always keep watch over the mind and learn to stop right at the point of seeing. Do understand? Stop at the moment of seeing. Now suppose one day you attain the noble fruit of arahantship. Even an arahant has eyes. Even an arahant sees forms with those eyes, but stops right at the point of seeing. The arahant does not wet what is seen with craving. An arahant too has ears and hears sounds, but stops at the point of hearing. There is no attachment, no clinging, no formations of grasping or indifference rooted in delusion. An arahant too has mind consciousness. Thoughts arise within it. Yet even though thoughts arise, the arahant does not soak them with craving, attachment, or indifference. The process of seeing, hearing, feeling stops there. Hence, after you have well trained yourself in kayanupassana, contemplation of the body, close your eyes, turn inward toward the mind, and reflect, whatever I have seen, heard, or felt, let me stop at that point of seeing, hearing, or feeling. Stop right there, at the moment of seeing. If a thought of greed, hatred, or delusion arises, recognize it as such and stop at the moment of knowing it. Do not fabricate thoughts. Do not soak them in craving. For once soaked in craving, attachment and clinging arise. And from there, inevitably, a formation leading toward becoming bhava, sankhara, is produced. Therefore, with your eyes gently closed, observe the mind and see that every thought which arises is impermanent. This is cittanupassana. But to cultivate cittanupassana properly, you must first be well trained in kayanupassana. Why? Because contact, phassa, arises dependent on form. Thus, only after firmly grounding yourself in the contemplation of the two impermanence of form should you turn to the contemplation of the mind. When kayanupassana has matured through, clearly seeing the impermanence of form, then with eyes closed observe each thought that arises and see its impermanence. Now reflect for a moment. Since this morning until now, how many thoughts have arisen within you? Thousands. You thought, I will get up. Then I will drink some water. Then I will come here. But is the mind that said, I will get up, still here now? Is the mind that said, I will drink water, still here now? Is the mind that said, I will come here, still here now? All those minds have passed away. Each thought that arose has ceased, but it ceased only after having set you in motion. Every mind that arises is impermanent. Each one arises, acts upon you, and ceases, having driven you into activity. You thought, "I will go there," and that thought arose, set you in motion, and then ceased. Every arising thought is impermanent, having made you act upon it. Through that activity, you either perform a wholesome kusala or an unwholesome akusala deed. Now think, having come here to listen to the Dhamma, what has occurred? A wholesome deed. If, instead, you had gone somewhere to quarrel, what would have occurred? An unwholesome deed. Thus, each arising thought is impermanent, but while it lasts, it sets you into motion, and through that motion, either wholesome or unwholesome sankharas are formed. And what is the nature of these sankharas? They carry you toward further becoming bhava. So see clearly, in every single moment, with each arising thought, if we fail to recognize its impermanence, we accumulate formations that propel us toward renewed existence. But if, even for half an hour, you keep your eyes closed and see the impermanence of each thought as it arises, then during that entire half hour, do you generate formations leading to becoming? No, they do not arise. Therefore, continually, with eyes closed, observe the impermanence of every arising thought, whether it be related to the 5 hindrances or the 7 factors of enlightenment. By seeing the impermanence of every thought as it arises, remaining mindful and clear, you are cultivating Cittanupassana. Now you have come from Kayanupassana to Cittanupassana. As you turn your gaze inward and observe each thought arising and passing away as impermanent, you dwell firmly within Cittanupassana. While you are practicing Cittanupassana, contemplation of the mind, you may not yet have the capacity to see clearly that what is seen, heard, or felt is impermanent. Because your mind is scattered, what happens then? You cannot stop at the moment of seeing. You cannot observe the impermanence of the mind as it arises. And what happens when you cannot? Inevitably, formations arise. And what are these formations? They are the contact of craving, attachment, grasping, and indifference. This is what is called feeling, suffering, or pleasure, conditioned by craving, grasping, and aversion. Now, why does feeling Vedana arise, and why is it that after contact phasa occurs, we cannot see impermanence? Because we fail to stop at the moment of seeing, hearing, or feeling. Inevitably, the mind has already created formations, and in the mind's activity, Vedana arises. Vedana is the contact of craving, grasping, and indifference. Once craving, grasping, and indifference arise, what can be done? At that point, you can observe that the contact itself is impermanent. Initially, you may have seen the impermanence of the mind, but while observing, there may have been a moment when you could not yet recognize the impermanence of that very mind. At that moment, the mind has gone toward craving, grasping, and indifference, and now you can see the impermanence of that very contact. Then it falls under Vedanupassana, contemplation of feeling. Thus, first, Cittanupassana develops, but the mind cannot yet be fully restrained. The mind moves toward the contact of craving, grasping, and indifference. By observing the impermanence of that contact, you understand it. At this stage, you may still be unable to see the impermanence of the mind itself, and also unable to see the impermanence of the contact of craving, grasping, and indifference. Inevitably, the 5 aggregates of clinging pankopadana skandha arise. This means either the 7 factors of enlightenment or the 5 hindrances manifest. At that point, everything that has arisen is fully formed. Nothing more can be done. Now observe all that has arisen through the lens of Dhammanupassana, contemplation of Dhammas. Some meditators may attempt to cultivate insight, but if the mind is scattered, then suffering arises without end. Why does suffering arise? Because the scattered mind was not directed toward Dhammanupassana. That is why, first, in Cittanupassana, try to restrain the mind at its very point of arising. If you fail, the mind goes toward craving, grasping, and indifference, and then suffering manifests. Observe the impermanence of the suffering. Even if you cannot stop there, inevitably the 5 aggregates arise. After that, observing the impermanence of the 5 aggregates leads to Dhammanupassana. You must see that the development of Kayanupassana, Cittanupassana, and Vedananupassana, the 3 contemplations, occurs in the context of Dhammanupassana, because all these phenomena are impermanent. Therefore, always observe if in the past you have broken a precept, erred, failed in practice. If your mind scattered, do not cling to those events. Direct every thought toward Dhammanupassana and see clearly that all these formations and dhammas are impermanent. It is here that the Blessed One, in accordance with the 4 foundations of mindfulness, teaches us, first, be strong in Kayanupassana. Having developed strength there, observe the impermanence of the mind, impermanence of the contact of craving, grasping, and indifference, and, in the same way, the impermanence of every arising mental formation, whether it belongs to the 5 hindrances or the 7 factors of enlightenment. Blessed One teaches us to observe the impermanence of all these dhammas.